It's election day today, and I hope you go vote. I'm going to go vote. It's in the morning, it's early. I don't know who's going to win what. I don't know how things are going to be decided. So don't think I'm coming at this from a winner or loser's perspective. But I would like us to keep a few things in mind. One of the things that I notice that is so popular right now in our culture here in America is we have to win, stick it to the other side, shove it down their throat, force our will and agenda on them. And I guess I have some concerns because as Christians, that's not the attitude we should have. Yes, we want things to be more godly. Yes, we want to vote for godly things. But I think far too often we confuse political candidates, positions, and parties and agendas, and we overlook anything ungodly in an effort to push an agenda or a party. I want us to keep a few things in mind on this election day. That whether your candidate wins or loses, be gracious, be loving. Christ didn't command us to win and force and shove. What we are commanded to do is turn the other cheek, to serve those around us, to bless those who curse us, to love those who hate us, to love our neighbors as ourselves. There's not an exception in there for creed, color, religious belief, political belief, gender. There is no exceptions on any of that. Like, but we've got to win. We have to do it. Let's look at the example Christ took. When Jesus was arrested, when he was beaten, when he was whipped, when he was crucified, he never rose up and struck down those around him. He could have easily. He could have commanded legions of angels to sweep down. And instead, on the cross, his words were, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. Even as he was dying, he was loving. He paid the price for us. Why? I don't understand why some of us think that suddenly our job as Christians is to wage a war. Um, our war is different. The weapons of our warfare are not earthly weapons, they're spiritual weapons that change our attitudes, that help us to love those around us, not try to beat them into submission. Jesus never told us to go out and do that. I hear people sometimes try to use the story of Jesus overturning the money changers' tables and going, see, we're commanded to fight. Okay, first off, you're not Jesus. You're not. He never tells us to do that. Then the example that's given there is he's in righteous anger against those who are hurting and taking advantage of the poor and the needy in God's name. He's actually rising up against the self proclaimed religious leaders who really are not, and instead are skimming money off of those in desperate need. Usually, guys, when I see people that are proclaiming that as the example, they need to look in the mirror because they're the ones that would have been behind the money changers table. We're not commanded to do that. He told us to go love and serve. So, regardless of whether you win or lose tomorrow, it's not whether it's red or blue, it's whether they're human. And guess what? They are. The government in charge, okay, I vote. I firmly believe in voting. But we have this idea that God is limited by who is in charge, and if the wrong party or the wrong person wins, that we've all of a sudden lost God's ability to work in our country. God has worked through dictators. Gee, look at what God did through Nebuchadnezzar and Darius and through all the centuries. The U.S. is young. Are you telling me that God wasn't able to work through those thousands of years before the United States existed? I think God is greater than our government. And there are the passages there that remind us that God is the one who appoints leaders. Yes, we have a voice. Yes, we get to vote. But ultimately, it is God who appoints them and puts them in place. Oh, and whether we like them or not, we're commanded to love them, to pray for them, blessings for them. Not that God would strike them down dead. That's not a godly prayer. That's not loving. That God would bless them, give them wisdom, give them encouragement, surround them with a body of godly advisors and counsel, that they would do a good job effectively, the job that God wants them to do. Do you pray for your leaders, whether you like them, agree with them, or not? Is your view limited to thinking that only one party can act godly? Because you may be surprised when you look neither party. Oh my goodness, both parties have major issues with godly behavior and attitudes and morals. There isn't one. If you're stuck on one issue, you might want to broaden that view just a little bit, because you're so busy staring at one tree, you're missing the forest that's there. There's a lot to think about and pray about. Neither party has a market, a corner on God, and we need to realize that neither do our neighbors and neither do we. Follow the commands that God gives us. Love that neighbor. Get to know them. If you've got that neighbor that's got that sign out front that has the opposite view of yours, get to know them, love them, serve them. You may find that they're not as different as you think. And maybe they're just as worried about you as you are about them. And that when you begin to love them, that you'll actually begin to build some bridges in a relationship. See, there's this amazing thing. There are very few conversions at the point of a sword that are real conversions. Very few people change their minds because they're forced to. They may paint it on the outside, but inside. But when you love them and serve them, then that means listening to them, and they'll begin to listen to you, and you may find common ground. You may find common understanding. And it is in that area that one or both of you may change. And you might be surprised who it is sometimes. Be like Jesus. Love. Love. I can't say that enough. Love those around you. That means gentleness, peace, patience, kindness, self-control. The fruit of the Spirit in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23. You want to know what love is. 1 Corinthians. Love is patient. Love is kind. It knows no envy. It does not harbor bitterness. It isn't looking for repayment. Love this election, whether you win or lose. I pray for God's blessing upon you and upon those who watch the video. Share his love. Be blessed.